Welcome to the course of Reinforced Concrete Design. I am Dr. Suvaj Mandal. I am working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering, NIT Rourkela. NIT Rourkela is situated at Odisha, India. We have learned that working straight method lead to your larger cross-sectional area, and it was not economical. So for the same reason, there is a high demand to have economical cross sections. And in 1950, ultimate load method was developed, and subsequently it was introduced in India in 1964. To overcome the limitations of work restraint method, in the ultimate load method, allow the stress near the your failure. So what happens if you see this graph? In this graph, if we in here you will find that initially we will draw one tangent. So in that tangent, this was linear portion in the working straight method, or you can see this graph. Okay, so basically this graph is idealization of this graph. This graph basically we have idealized, we are neglecting that after the failure, after the maximum load part. So to overcome the limitation of working straight method, ultimate load method allow the stress to reach near your failure. So what we are doing here, if you see this graph is basically idealization of this graph. Here we are basically neglecting that softening part. Okay, so here there is straight line. So what we are doing here in the work straight method, what we did, we allow the stress up to this much. See, this graph I have considered from the earlier class. So what happens? This graph A corresponding to your actual strength FCK, that graph B is corresponding to the 0.65 FCK, and graph C is corresponding to 0.45 FCK. Okay, if you consider the limit state method. So this graph basically corresponding to limit state method. Now, what happens if you consider working state method? Then allowable state should be somehow below here. Okay, see, it should not be confused because this graph we have considered, because the graph I have considered here is representing ABC graph, that is corresponding to your limit state method decision. In limit state, this value basically what happened is coming to be 0.45 FCK. Now, seen in the working state method, the allowable stress is low than the 0.45 FCK. The allowable stress is here FCK by 3, so you can say 0.33 FCK. So that value should be somewhere here. Okay. For the time being, we just consider this value. Instead of coming here, we are just representing it here. For the time being, you just assume this value is corresponding to our working state method. Just assume this value here is coming as your linear elastic value. Okay, you just assume this value, though actually it should be somewhere here, but just assume this is here. Okay, so this value corresponding to right now is your 0.33 FCK. Okay, now if you multiply with the sum factor of safety, this value will reach somewhere here. Okay, so why I am saying this, because this graph I already used to define permissible stress for limit state method. So now for limit state method, the value is 0.45 FCK. See graph, so here it should be 0.45 FCK, but for working state method, okay, that value is 0.33 FCK. So it should be somewhere here. It should be somewhere here. But for the time being, we assume this value. Okay, this value is somewhere here, just in the linear zone. Okay, so this value representing 0.4, this value representing 0.33 FCK, and if you multiply the load factor, it will be your stress under the working load. Okay, since it was based on linear elastic theory, so stress was allowed up to the linear part. Now what ultimate load method is doing? Ultimate load method is allowing the stress to reach your failure. So now if you draw the tangent line, if you extend it, basically ultimate load method is allowing the stress to reach near their ultimate load. Okay, so how it is achieving? It is basically it is applying one load factor. How it is achieving? It is applying one load factor. Whatever the stress is acting on the working load, whatever the stress was developing in the working load, they are applying one load factor. Okay, if you apply the load factor, basically whatever the stress was acting here in that working load, that will be extended to your ultimate load. So to overcome the limitation of working stress method, now we are allowing the stress to develop in the structures up to this much. So now what happens if we allow up stress up to this much, that stress also will reach the non-linear stress. So strain will be somewhere here. So if you allow the stress here, okay, now if you extend it, this will be your strain somewhere here. Okay. So what we have learned? We have learned in the working strain method, we are not using any load factor. What we did in the working strain method, you will find that in different combination of load, there is no load factor there. Only there is a combinations, linear combinations, and among the linear combination of different load, we are considering the worst cases or maximum load what was happening occurring worst cases. What are the maximum load is occurring? We are considering that for the working strain method. Now here what we are doing? Here we are introducing one load factor. Okay, first thing we are allowing the stress to reach near your nonlinear zone, near the collapse. Second thing what we are doing? We are introducing one load factor to enhance the load. Basically, we have introduced another term, that is load factor. We have introduced modular ratio in working strain method. In the ultimate load method, we have introduced load factor, and load factor is basically your ultimate load, okay, for which you want to design divided by working load. So how we are achieving the ultimate load? Initially, we are calculating the stress whatever they have occurring in the working load, and then we are multiplied with the load factor. If you allow the stress to reach to your failure, since we are allowing the stress to reach near the failure, that cross-sectional dimension also will reduce. So here if you find this example here, this was one column. If the load is constant, if load P is constant, okay, in that case, since we are allowing that for working strain method, since we are allowing lower stress, that cross-sectional area will be high or larger. In case of ultimate load method, since we are allowing the stress to reach near your collapse, cross-section will also reduce. Since cross-section is reduced, it will be economical. This was the main idea about your ultimate load method. Main difference is that we have introduced one term, load factor, for ultimate load method, and we are allowing stress to reach near your non-linear zone or near your failure. We are providing safety against the collapse. The ultimate load method use different load factor for various kind of load and their combinations. So you will find in the working strain method there is different combinations, but that was only combinations of the load. There is no load factor there. Okay. Here we are introducing one load factor and different load factor for different combination of load, different kind of load and different combination of load. So this was the advantage we have in the ultimate load method. Now what are the disadvantage we have? Since ultimate load method lead to the smaller cross section, okay, in that case there can be excessive deflections or there can be crack also. Okay, so though it is providing safety against the failure or collapse, it will not give a guarantee on the safety against the serviceability, or you can see will not give the guarantee serviceability and the safety criteria together. Ultimate load method also do not consider the effect of creep and the shrinkage. Now another major disadvantage of the ultimate load method is that in the ultimate load method, the stress which is occurring at the ultimate load is basically a stress occurring at the ultimate load is considered as the stress occurring at the service load multiplied by load factor that I just now discussed. Now what is happening here? If you do like this, what happened? Initially you are calculating all the stress in the linear zone, and then based on the linear zone and the based on linear elastic theory, and then we are multiplied with some load factor. So whatever the stress we will calculate, that also will come as a linear elastic zone. So whatever the calculations we will do, that also will be based on linear elastic theory. But at the same time, stress also reach to the non-linear zone. So we can see there is some flaws. First we are calculating the stress under working load, and then we are multiplied it to have the stress under ultimate load. So these things is based on your linear elastic theory in the ultimate load case. At the same time, when you applied ultimate load or load near the failure, concrete already reaches to the non-linear zone, or structure already reaches to non-linear zone or inelastic zone. Okay, so you will see there is some conceptual mismatch. First is based on linear elastic theory in the ultimate load case. At the same time, structure also lead to the non-linear zone. Here you can see this example. Initially we calculate all the stress here and then multiplied here, so it will reach here somewhere here, and according to that we'll do all the calculation. We'll calculate the stress, we'll calculate strain. So whatever the theoretical calculation we will do, okay, strain will be somewhere here based on your linear elastic theory at the ultimate load using ultimate load method. Then in actual case what happened, at this stage concrete will lead to the strain of up to this much. If you draw one line here, it will lead, the strain will be somewhere here. Okay, so you will find there is a large deviation between your predicted result in the ultimate load method and what is happening in the actual concrete or in the actual concrete structure. If you want to apply this method for your case, what you have to do, you have to have a realistic model of stress strain for your concrete, for a particular concrete what you want to use in your design purpose, because it is heterogeneous in nature and it will be very difficult for you to have unique stress strain result. In case of linear analysis, we have done that if you know that strain conditions and if you multiply the Young modulus, you can predict the stress. But if we considering the nonlinear zone, in that case directly you cannot have stress is equal to E into epsilon, okay, Young modulus into the strain. Here you will find that stress also is function of modulus as well as the strain. There you have to draw one tangent at each point and you have to see how the tangent is behaving. Depending on that you have to predict the stress. And since concrete is heterogeneous in nature and there are a lot of factors which is influencing the stress strain behavior, it will be very difficult for you to have a unique stress strain curve. Okay, so if you want to use ultimate load method, in that case you should have a proper knowledge, okay, of the nonlinear behavior of the concrete. To have, if you want to use ultimate load method in proper way, in that case you should have proper knowledge of stress strain behavior in the inelastic zone of the concrete, then only you can use it. Okay, otherwise it is not recommended, is not advisable to use ultimate load method for your design purpose. In the working stress method, we have find that we are providing sufficient safety and serviceability, since that area is coming. In the working stress method, we observe that area is coming more, and for that same reasons we are able to provide sufficient safety and the serviceability, but it was not economical, and that lead to the ultimate load method. In the ultimate load method, what we observe, though we are able to provide sufficient safety, but serviceability criteria was ignored. We are not able to fulfill the serviceability criteria since the area was coming low, cross sectional area was coming low. We are basically compromising with the serviceability criteria. Now to overcome the limitations of working stress method, which was not economical, and also overcome the limitations of ultimate load method in which we have ignored the serviceability criteria, the limit state method come to the picture. Limit state method, what it do? Limit state method ensure the probability of any limit state being reached is acceptably low. So it is saying that we will apply some limit on the stress and also we apply some limit to the load, and will ensure that during your operation conditions or during the lifespan of the structures, that the structure will not experience the stress which was allowed, up to which it was allowed, neither load also will reach which was for which it was designed. Okay, so in that, so here there we will find that we are allowing up to certain level of stress in the limit state method, and also we are enhancing the load by applying some factor of safety, and probability of reaching that allowable stress in the limit state method is low, as well as probability of reaching the factor load for which it was designed is also low. And this factor of safety basically you can find in the IS code. IS code recommended it, and IS code also obtain it through proper reliability analysis. It is not like that somebody give you some factor of safety and you are applying it. For that reasons, for that factor of safety, IS code is doing the job for you. It is conducting proper reliability analysis to have factor of safety for the stress as well as for the loading conditions. So here we have learned that we can use limit state method, because limit state method is considering both safety and the serviceability criteria for the design purpose, and at the same time it is also economical. So whatever the further in the working state method that which was not economical, that also we are overcoming. So whatever the demerit was there in the working state method and the ultimate load method, both we are overcoming by using the limit state method. At the same time, you are also ensuring the safety and the serviceability criteria. Though it cannot give you guarantee that structure will not fail, but the probability of the failure will be low. And for the same reason, IS code is doing the statistical analysis, some reliability analysis for you to recommend the factor of safety for the loading or the stress conditions, and you can use that load factor of safety for your design purpose. Limit state Limit state method basically based on two criteria: limit state of safety, which is also known as ultimate limit state, and the limit state of serviceability. First we will try to learn what is the limit state of safety, and then we will try to learn what is the limit state of serviceability. Limit state of safety, which also is known as ultimate limit state, deals with the partial and the complete failure or the collapse of the structure under the service load. Okay, basically it is saying that it is dealing with the failure of the structures, either partial failure or complete failure of the structures for the load for which it was designed. The failure or partial failure or complete failure may occur for the following reasons in the following form: that it is exceeding the load bearing capacity, structure may overturn, it is exceeding the load bearing capacity, or structure is overturned, there can be slide if the bounding condition is not proper, there can be buckling, fatigue, fracture. So what limit state method is ensuring? Limit state method ensures that neither any part nor whole structure will collapse or become unstable under the any combination of loading for which it was designed in its lifespan. So all the structures should have one lifespan, and during the lifespan neither any part nor the whole structure will collapse if we design as per our limit state method. Limit state method also need to take care about the abnormal but possible overload such as earthquake load, extreme wind load such as cyclone. All the things also need to take care in the limit state method. Basically, limit state method will give you the safety against the strength, against the stability, against the integrity of the structures. Integrity in the means that there will not be any partial failure. All the structures, the different component of the structure will intact. There will not be any partial failure. Stability means it will not overturn or there will not be slides. And strain is basically it will not fail due to the failure of the material, either concrete or steel. So basically, limit state method based on two things. One is the limit state of safety, or you can say limit state of safety, or ultimate limit state, or limit state of serviceability. In the limit state of safety, you are ensuring the safety against the strain or failure on the material, stability and the integrity of the structures. Now we will try to learn what is the limit state of serviceability means. Limit state of serviceability is related to the satisfactory performance under the service load. Satisfactory performance in the sense it is satisfactory performance in the sense the structure must ensure that the occupant will not feel discomfort under the service load. That means for which that structure is designed in that load, the occupants should not feel discomfort. So let me explain the first term. There should not be excessive deflection on the structure. Suppose you have designed one floor, like this, and the occupant try to work like this. So see here, the structure is not fail, but what happen? The structure basically you will feel the structure will undergo excessive deflection. Here you can see this excessive deflections. Okay, though the floor does not fail, but there is excessive deflections. Okay, if you design like that, in that case the structure will have excessive deflection and the occupant will not feel the comfort. Okay, there will be discomfort for the occupant also. So you should not design like that. So structures must ensure that there is no excessive deflections. Another thing is that cracking. There should be excessive cracking also. So what happen if the crack is there and crack is visible crack? So what happen? Whoever the occupant is there, they will not feel safe. They will feel very discomfort there. Okay, they may feel that structure may collapse because they are not the designer. Whenever they will feel the, whenever they will see the crack, they feel that structure may fall. Though there is reinforcement, the structure may not fail, the structure may not collapse, but the occupant will feel discomfort. Another thing is that designing in such a way that there is excessive vibrations. In that case, what will happen? The occupant will not feel the comfort. Suppose you are constructing one building near the railway line. Okay, in that case, when the rail or when the train goes, that time you will find there can be excessive deflection in some building, and whoever occupant is there, they will not feel comfort during that time. So there should be excessive vibration. Suppose in a toll plaza you have constructed one building, so there is a two column on the side of the road, and at the top of that column you have make one floor, and the two column is connected by tie beam below the road. And what happen when the vehicles, truck or heavy vehicle is to go, the tie beam is to go down. Okay, can go down, and due to that column also will come, try to come close. Okay, and due to this phenomena, what happens? There can be excessive vibration in the floor. It happened really in some places. I have observed in some places it happened due to that improper design. So in that case, there will be excessive vibration. So structure should not be such that there is a excessive vibration. Suppose you are constructing building near your railway line. In that case, or you are constructing some building where there is some chances of vibration. There is some chances. There is some chances that regular vibration load may come. In that case, you should take proper care. Apart from this case, the, in the serviceability conditions, the structure also need to satisfy the following conditions such as durability, impermeability, acoustics, and the thermal insulation. Impermeability means there should not be excessive crack. Okay, you will find that in due to the shrinkage there can be internal crack, and if the internal crack join together, then there will be passage for the water leakage. So you should take care while designing. Okay, you should take care the shrinkage part also. Acoustic, whenever you are designing for classroom, you will find the many classroom that the classroom are not acoustically good. There will be some echo. Okay, in that case your voice will not be audible for the student. So you should have that proper care for the acoustic also. Thermal insulation should be there, and in case of durability, that you also should take care what is the exposure conditions. Okay, the structures in which environment you are constructing, you also should take care of the durability part while designing in the limb state method. So what we have learned in the limb state method, basically there is two criteria. One is the limb state of safety, another criteria limb state of stability. In the safety criteria, we have learned that there should be strain, proper strain. Structure also should have integrity, should maintain integrity, and structure also should be stable. In the serviceability criteria, we have learned that while designing the structure, you should also take care that comfort of the occupant. And for the same reason, there should not be excessive deflections, there should be crack, much visible crack, vibration, there should be excessive vibrations. Thereafter also you also should take care the impermeability, acoustic and thermal insulations. So in case of permeability, you also should take proper care while you construct in the top floor or the floor near the bathroom or the washroom. So while constructing the top floor, if you pour more concrete at one time, okay, there will be high chance of the shrinkage crack. You should take proper care while casting the floor. There should be proper curing also, and you should also maintain water cement ratio, and also should use some admixtures to reduce the shrinkage. And while constructing the floor near the bathroom, you also take care that water flow, all the things. If there is water stagnant in that floor of the bathroom or the washroom, there will be high chance that the water will go down. There will be passage for that concrete, there will be passage for the water, okay, and water will come down from the top floor to the below the bottom floor. Water will come down from the top surface to the bottom surface. Okay, that also need to take care. Let me explain the assumptions of the limb state method. These assumptions also you can find in the IS 456, the section 38.1. There are total 7 assumptions. The first assumption is the plane section normal to the axis remain plane after bending. Second assumption is the tensile strain of the concrete is ignored. Only steel rod carry the tensile force. Concrete and the steel act together. Basically, it is saying the strain compatibility. First assumption here is saying that plane sections which is normal to the neutral axis will remain plane after the bending. So these assumptions I already explained. See here, the first 3 assumptions are the same what we discussed in the working state method. So it will be better if you go to that working state method in the last lecture, in the lecture number 3. Okay, that will be very clear for you. I already explained very clearly there. So here it is saying that with the section which was normal to the neutral axis, which is normal to the neutral axis, okay, which was 90 degree to the which was 90 degree to the neutral. Suppose this is the neutral axis, it was 90 degree to the neutral axis before bending. After bending also it will be 90 degree. And second is that tensile strain of the concrete is ignored. It is saying that tensile, whatever the tensile strain is occurring in the concrete, that will be carried by the reinforcement. Here if you see the below figure, so this is your concrete cross section and we have provided some reinforcement here. So though there is some concrete below here, that concrete also can carry some amount of tensile load or tensile stress, but for design purpose we will ignore that strain of the concrete. So whatever the stress will occur, that stress must be carried by the reinforcement only. So here whatever the tensile force is generating, that force will be carried by the reinforcement. So here you just see we are representing by one line here. Okay, that line basically is saying that the whatever the stress is generating due to the load, all the stress will be carried by the reinforcement only. Third assumption, strain and the steel act together. It is saying that when you are embedding the reinforcement in the concrete, there will not be slippage between the concrete and the reinforcement. So basically there is a total compatibility of the strain. So strain in that surface of this in the reinforcement will be the same which is in the concrete, and the surface between the or contact surface in the contact of that the contact surface between the reinforcement and the concrete, okay, the strain will be the same. Now fourth assumptions here is saying that maximum strain in the concrete and outermost compression fiber is taken as 0.0035. Okay, when the concrete beam or concrete slab is bent or it is under the compression, and that is saying that the maximum compression strain or the strain which is occurring to the compression must be limited to 0.0035. This is the different from the working stress method. Working stress method, the saying that stress and strain is linear. Working stress method do not provide any limit for the strain, but in case of limited method, it is saying that compression under compression, that under compression the strain must be limited to 0.0035. The fifth assumption is saying the stress block may be assumed to be rectangular, trapezoid, parabola, or any other shape which result in prediction of the strain is substantial agreement with the result of the test. What it is saying? It is saying that whenever we are representing the stress, okay, in the working stress method, we will find that strain is proportional to the stress. There we have learned that strain and stress must be in the elastic zone. So what we have learned? There we have learned that if this is your neutral axis, along the depth, strain will be linear. Since strain and stress is in the linear zone, in the elastic zone, then stress also will be similar figure to the strain. So in the working stress method, what we have observed that strain diagram as well as the stress diagram both are triangular in nature. So here for the working stress method, this upper portion was triangle for the strain as well as for the stress. The below one and the same assumption was there. Only reinforcement can carry the load. So there is only one line here. There is no stress block here. Now working stress method is saying that it will differ from the limited method is saying that it will differ from the triangular one. It is saying it can be any shape, just like rectangular or trapezoid or parabola or any other shapes which is satisfying to your experimental result. In the working stress method, we have observed that this stress block was triangular, but here in the limited method, most suitable cases what we assume that initially it is rectangular and then there is parabolic in nature. So this is the difference with the working stress method. First difference is that in the strain, working stress method do not define any strain limit, but limited method define that in the under compression the strain limit must be to 0.0035, and second one assumptions is that stress block can be any shape. Instead of triangular one what we observe in the working stress method, it can be any shape, rectangular, rectangular, parabola or any other shape which is satisfying to your original experimental testing. So most of the cases you will find we assume that initially this is your rectangular then parabola. We will observe that most of the cases your one main job will be to find this value K2x. What is the value of K2? We will find that is a major job in the designing also. Now what is the sixth assumption? Sixth assumption is saying that stress in the reinforcement are derived from the representative stress strain curve from the type of steel used. Okay, so it is saying that if you are using mild steel or if you are using Fe415 or if you are using other grade of steel, then it should be derived from the representative stress strain graph. And for the design purpose, partial safety factor of 1.15 is used. So 1.15 means whatever the stress you are getting, yield stress you are getting for that steel or for the reinforcement, that stress should be reduced to, or you can say allowable stress will be reduced to that yield value divided by 1.15. So if you calculate it, will come 0.87 Fy. So whatever the yield value is coming, we will consider 87% of that value. And sixth assumption is saying that maximum strain in the tension enforcement in the section of failure shall not be less than that particular value Fy by 1.15 Es plus 0.002. So it is saying that you should have some allowable strain. You should have sufficient strain so that before failure that occupant can get the warning. Yes, there is some excessive deflections. Now you may have to vacate the room. Okay. So it is saying that strain should not be less than Fy by 1.15 Es plus 0.002. So how it is coming? So since we have this strain is saying this is strain value. It basically, if we draw one vertical line from here, we will find this is intersecting here. It is saying that strain should be that particular value. That the strain should not be less than that particular value. Strain should not be less than this value. It should be more than that, so that there will be sufficient displacement, so that occupant can have a warning before the failure. So how this value is coming? So if you draw a vertical line here to intersect here, it is saying that this value basically how much? 0.002, okay, plus basically that strain which is occurring to the linear. So how it is coming? Fy by 0.1.15, that is coming 0.87. So whatever the strain is coming due to the 87% of yield value. Okay, since the steel initially behave linearly before going to the yield value. Okay, the line is very straight. The steel you will find, if you conduct one test, tensile test, you will find that stress. If you draw the stress strain graph, you will find that initial portion is sufficiently straight before reaching to the yield value. So now if you are reducing to 87% of it, then also it will be linear. So what happened? What we are doing? We are calculating the strain, the elastic zone. So 87% of Fy. So 8 Fy by 1.15, that is coming 87. So 0.87 Fy by Young modulus, that is strain, plus this strain value 0.002. It is saying that before failure, the strain shall not be less than that particular value. These are the assumptions are there in the limit state. So I hope it is clear to you. So for the reference, you also can visit IS 456 section 38.1. You will get that all the details. Let us summarize the difference between the working state method and the limit state method. In the working stress method, we have learned that there is no information of limiting of strain. It is saying that only stress and stress is linear. In the working state method, we assume that stress and strain is behaving linearly. Basically, what we are doing, we are assuming that working state method. In the working state method, we are doing linear elastic analysis. So what is saying that strain and stress will behave linearly. Basically is saying that if you draw a tangent here, okay, that in the working state method, that allowable stress will be somewhere limited to somewhere here, okay, where the stress and strain is perfectly linear. But problem is that working stress method do not define one particular limit up to which strain you should consider. What it is doing, it is assuming one constant, that is called modular ratio. The modular ratio, what the modular ratio are doing, what the modular ratio is doing, it is reducing the allowable stress. But again, this modular ratio is different for different values or different grade of concrete. So you just see that modulus ratio M is basically ratio of modulus of elasticity of steel by modulus of elasticity of concrete, or you can say that M is equal to 280 by 3 sigma CBC. The 3 sigma CBC also different for different grade of concrete. Okay, so there is no limiting value of strain, neither stress. On the other hand, in the limit state method, It is saying that maximum compression strain is limited to 0.0035 irrespective of grade of concrete. Okay, so whatever the grade you just consider, you can consider, but maximum strain in the concrete is limited to 0.0035. Okay, so it is saying that the strain in the concrete will be somehow 0.0035 here. Okay, strain in the concrete will be 0.0035, but there is no recommendation for strain. There is no particular strain for the working stress method. Second assumption is that stress block along the depth is assumed to be triangular. It is saying that suppose this is your cross section and this is the cross section and this is the neutral axis depth. It is saying the strain block will be triangular for the working stress method. For the limb state method also strain is triangular. Okay. Now the difference is coming in the stress block. Since in the working stress method strain and stress is linearly related, since we are using elastic analysis, okay, we are limiting the stress up to elastic limit. So stress block also will be triangular. So here stress block also is coming triangular, similar to our strain block in the working stress method. And since concrete can not carry the tensile force, only reinforcement is carrying the tensile force. So there is only one line here. There is no other distribution similar to that. There is no distribution which is there in the above the neutral axis. Which is above the neutral axis. Okay, below the neutral axis there will be tension. So we are neglecting the tensile stress capacity of the concrete. Only reinforcement carrying the load. So there is only one line here. This is your tensile stress carried by the reinforcement. Now for the limb state method is saying that the stress block can be rectangular, trapezoidal, parabola or any other sub depending on the your experimental result. Which suit best for your experimental result, you have to assume that type of stress block. Okay, so here strain plot will be along the depth. We just plot the strain along the depth, that will be triangular, and again this strain is also 0.0035, maximum strain will be 0.0035, and corresponding to the maximum strain, that allowable stress is 0.45 FCK. Okay, so here that maximum stress will be here 4.5 FCK, and then we are assuming most of the cases you will see we are assuming this initially rectangular part and then there is a parabolic part. So what we are assuming? We are assuming the top fiber is reaching the maximum stress, maximum allowable stress of 0.45 FCK. At the same time, maximum allowable strain is 0.035. Okay, and after certain depth that will be parabola. So what is the force? What is the compressive force carried by the concrete? Compressive force is basically carried by the concrete, we represent by the line C. So what is the difference between the working stress method and the limb state method? From the diagram it will be easy for you. See, we are representing the total effect of compressive force which concrete can carry by the term C. So here if you calculate at half B into depth, okay, that part, that will be your area and stress FCK. So that will be total compressive force carried by the concrete in the compression. So that force we are representing by line C. Similarly, for this limb state method, you also have to calculate equivalent stress which concrete can carry and will represent by one line. That line here which is at K2 the x distance from the top, and then total compressive force carried by the concrete we are representing by C, and the total force carried by the total tensile force carried by the beam or carried by the structures. Okay, that total tensile force will be carried by the steel reinforcement. So we are representing by this line here. So basically what happened, this C force and the tensile force must be the same for the equilibrium. Wherever you consider the working state method or the limb state method, for the equilibrium, okay, what are the moment you are applying due to that, what are the load you are applying due to that load, there will be some moment. That moment must be balanced by the C and the T, compressive force and the tensile force acting in the beam. So we'll solve one example problem. That time it will be clear for you that how you are calculating all this parameter and how you will go for the design. So these are the basic things are there in the ultimate load method, limit state method, and the working stress method. So working stress method is not economical, though it is satisfying your safety and serviceability criteria by default. Ultimate load method is economical, but it cannot give the guarantee of the serviceability conditions. There can be excessive deflections or the crack. Limit state method basically satisfying both the criteria, safety criteria as well as the serviceability criteria. Though it will not give you the guarantee, 100% guarantee the structure will not fail, but probability of failure will be low if you design using limit state method. And here we have learned what is the difference between working state method and the limit state method, how we can represent through some diagram, that all the things we have learned.